today, isn't it? Yes.
5th of January,
Yeah, yeah.
So far, so good. So,
yeah. You know, interesting. I just last night finished doing, or was it this morning? Finished doing a class, a preparation, which I've got to present still on Friday. And it was about predictions and prophecies and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to see where it is. Let me just. I want to. I was researching it, and I came up with something. I was actually stuck for 2 days. I really just didn't know where to start. You know, when you think about either the word predictions or the word prophecy, you know, they conjure up different definitions. I mean, one can go to the definition and look it up, but in one's mind, they conjure up different things. And so, anyway, so I battled. I just couldn't get a start. I couldn't get a handle. I couldn't get something to hang my hat on. And so anyway, last night I went to bed and had a good night's sleep, and I woke up and I thought, okay, I know what I'm going to do. Okay, and I finished the class in a couple of hours. And but I want to read something that in my research, and it's that I thought maybe it's just great for us to talk about. I'm just taking something sort of. I'm going to read it to you because as I've sort of. It's virtually copy and pasted it from a particular site. I've made a few of my own little amendments, but it won't make any difference to it. So I'm just going to sort of, in the middle of it, just start reading it to you, okay? And it'll just be 1 minute or 2 minutes, okay? 1 minute maybe, okay? So it'll be 2022 will be a year of escalating tensions between the old guard and the zealous radicals from every ideology. But we must come to terms with the shadow side of capitalism, which has led to countless people being excluded from private and privileged institutions and benefits, and to the oppressive narrative that more and faster are always better. Will we embrace better is better and enough is enough? Such an interesting comment that. Better is better and enough is enough. We come back to that. The fantasy of unlimited growth will be grounded by reality. It will benefit us to choose the change instead of facing the consequences of unbridled gluttonous. Are you savoring what you have? Is your generosity as big as your consumption? Are you able to prioritize quality over quantity? Who or what can help you reach your sustainable lifestyle? More people having enough of what they truly need will stabilize both matter and spirit. Everyone does better and is less threatened, when we have fewer people in desperate situations. Where we fail to understand and respond to the pain in our communities, we will still see intense reactionary results, including eruptive violence and further rifts. Let's just stop there. I mean, I've got more of it. I just found that so interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Coming back to better is better and enough is enough. And there was another sentence further on that really elucidated that. But in other words, don't buy the cheapest for in order to buy quantity, buy quality.
Exactly.
Better is better. Okay.
Mm.
Um, um, yeah.
Better is better across every, every which way you look at it, whether it's a purchase or whether it's, your approach to your neighbour,
Right.
better is
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
It was ironic, I just caught a news headline there before, and they were talking, there's been huge amounts of trouble with people getting access to testing here at the moment.
Okay.
And there was this guy complaining bitterly because there was a testing centre not far from his business. And he said, I'm losing money hand over fist because of all of these people clogging up the streets, getting a test. And I thought to myself, well, that's very compassionate of you.
Yeah.
Could not care less about any of those sick people. I just want my stack.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the person next door is probably selling those queues and queues of people with cool drinks and sandwiches and making money.
Well, that's right. That's right. No, it's I think you're absolutely well, I mean, it's a statement of truth, isn't it? It really is.
It is, eh? And another one that came up there that I thought, it's so everything we read here was like the Phoenix Rising type of information that we will have, on our website or YouTube or whatever, and the one that really caught my eye as well was, is your generosity as big as your consumption?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, isn't that brilliant?
Mm.
I don't know whoever wrote this, but they really were.
It's very profound, isn't it? Yeah.
It's very profound.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
and
It's so good.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. So, been thinking about it today. But in fact, just uh, I just lay down just before I came here to speak to you, and I was thinking about it. It's the phoenix is about to rise. Okay, it really is. We can't be far away. We're going to have earthquakes, and we're going to have volcanoes erupting, and we're going to have massive storms and fires and things like that. And it has to invoke compassion. The people that have got to help these people that are inflicted with these earthly, elements that have been, declared war on those particular people that experience them. Okay, yeah. And, so I suppose there are different ways in this final Iron Age of evolution. In a way, nature just forces people to have passion.
It raises a really interesting. You've raised a really interesting point there because, on the one hand, I suppose many people have this sort of expectation that, that being a spiritual person makes everything right. That there's this sort of image of perfection and everything falling into place, and flowers blooming and birds singing and all that sort of stuff. But my sense of it is that being a spiritual person, awake to the truth, like those statements, means that you're just extremely capable to handle whatever turns up in in an appropriate way which, you know, a lot of the values that we've espoused for a long time, you know, people first, you know, care for the environment, you know, and on and on and on. So, you know, the idea of an awakened spiritual being, you know, and it's, you know, I'd characterize it as like a remembering, because it's there in every single one of us. It's just something that, you know, we remember, we sort of, you know, put forward. And whether it's a natural disaster that helps that awakening process, or something else, or, you know, whether it's just spontaneous, or whether it's as a result of rigorous spiritual practice, you know, it can come in many different ways. The reality is of, you know, that's what divine expression is. You know, it is about you engaging with what's there, you know, the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, this sort of notion by some that, you know, we're all going to be, you know, at one with God, and that, and I hope that's, you know, that's I wish I have that does come true. But we're still going to have to deal with what's before us.
Yes, we do have to, you know, and I also wonder when I was writing or reading this actually, whether a lot of people just and include ourselves in that, you know, whether we see what you're talking about, or whether we hear about it, and do we try and just suppress it, okay, and say, well, that's just life, and that's it, instead of listening, okay, and make clearer the consequences of using force instead of, you know, caring, instead of, you know, so we just sort of suppress it and push it away and turn our back on it, and somehow I wonder if we do that, probably unconsciously, but we're aware of it, so I suppose it can't be unconscious, okay, and we just move away from that deeper caring that is necessary for a change of planet, you know.
Was that little dialogue, isn't it? You know, which is always about me, isn't it? You know, so it's sort of interesting just listen to you talk, like, you know, Sadhguru has a daily message, you know, through his app, and his message there today, you know, is our presence here is just for a brief period of time. We do not have to further shorten it by fighting it with each other.
Yeah.
You know, and fighting can come in many ways. It's a bit how we.
It comes in what we're talking about, you know, just sort of the suppressing some caring that we could offer. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting, and you know, when we look right now at, let's just take, because it also came up, you know, with the prophecies and so on, being talked about Pisces and Neptune and so on, and water, okay, and you know, there's a lot that I have researched for sort of parts of my classes, where there are so many solutions currently for water, okay. There really are, and some of them have been around for quite a long time. You know, well, not I mean, not relative, but you know, certainly maybe for a decade or so, okay. And some are, you know, maybe just 4 or 5 years old, but they basically have solutions to give everybody drinking water. Okay. And like forever. Okay. and they, for example, they've given, really, really inexpensive, cheap way of taking seawater and turning it into drinking water. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other ways of taking water out of the thin air, okay,
Yeah.
in the atmosphere and make it into drinking water. Okay.
Yeah.
And yet there's still people, and there's still people digging these very deep wells to get to the rivers down the bottom, which then is quite limited in its distribution, but they do it, and some people in that area do get water. But there are better solutions, and yet somehow the people who can spread it, okay, don't. They suppress it, okay, or they can't make enough money out of it, perhaps, but the solution is there. So more people, or I think it starts with awareness. We always talk about this in the Phoenix Rising, is the awareness. Okay, let's make people aware. So I find these things from researching, and I think, okay, they've now put it out there, and nobody's picking it up and is sort of making it public, all over, so everybody's aware, so that eventually somebody who can do something about it can get to see it. Okay,
but the evidence would seem to point to exactly that point that you just mentioned. Is that it seems to me that unless there is money to be made from it, then no one's interested.
Yeah, yeah. I like that phrase that I read to you also, where you talk about the shadow, the shadow of consumerism. Okay. I thought, that is so not only poetic, but it hits it nail on the head. Okay.
Yeah.
Really does. Yeah.
There's some pretty strong conditioning there in our society, isn't there, around all of those things, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And
even to the point that it's not widely discussed.
there
just seems to be this underlying assumption that, oh well, that's just the way it is. So
yeah.
that's the status quo, and that's the way it is. And
yeah.
No discussion is necessary. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, coming back to what you alluded to earlier, with people, that I think more and more people are going to take to the streets, for the betterment of society. Okay, because they just don't have a voice. They just can't. So what else can they do? Okay.
And I think part of that spiritual awakening too, though, whether it's a conscious thing or whether it's just something that's spontaneously happening within people,
Right.
is the ability to see things as they are. So this spin and propaganda and all this nonsense which is just perpetuated, people just see straight, an increasing number of people are just seeing straight through it and just seeing it for what it is, And that's the call to action, isn't it? It's just like, no, that's not true, and it's not okay.
Yeah.
And you hear it all the time. Like, it's one of my pet hates, and I don't like to use the word hate, but one of my pet hates when you see politicians and senior bureaucrats saying the Australian people want this.
Yeah, oh yes. Oh my goodness me. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for telling me what I want.
Yes. Okay.
They expect it and they want it.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah. We really got to do away with politics. We can do away with politics. This whole democratic political, what we need are benign dictators, okay, that listen to the people at every level. Okay.
Well, that's the trouble. When you have a contest, there's always, one wanting to win and one having to lose, and that spurns bad behavior because they want to win.
And lies.
and lies. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because they want to win. It's all about the power, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Mm. Which is sort of interesting because, for one reason or another, I can't think exactly what the catalyst was, but I was just going back over some of the notes about digital distributism, you know, that we wrote. That must be a while ago now. Was it 18 months ago? I don't know. A while ago, 2 years ago.
yeah.
And and at an organisational level, it's exactly the same issues that we were talking about then.
Yeah,
Exactly
yeah,
the same, you know, about, you know, how people are treated and how people are involved in the organisation and, you know, what's the why behind the organisation and all of those sort of things.
mm,
Same principles apply to our community, our society, our
yeah.
our nation, our planet, you know. So
Right, right, right.
mm. You know, and even with our discussion about crypto there, you know, a week or so ago, you know, that the reasons that it was created,
Mm,
you know,
mm,
and the perception of the solution there was to take people out of the equation.
yeah, yeah,
Let mathematics be the determinant,
yeah, yeah,
not people, you know, but, yeah, which is a sad indictment on humanity, but anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess one asks, there's the two elements, okay? The one is the sort of the people that sort of are the vanguard of love and caring and so on, and the opposite, is fear, okay?
Mm. Mm.
Um, Fear is there's just so much driving towards the opposite of love,
Mm.
okay?
Mm.
Through fear, okay?
Mm.
And
And I think in the age in which we live, you know, whether it's pandemics or whether it's natural disasters, especially characterism is the same thing, I guess, but or whatever it is, you know, economic pressures and whatever, you know, just doing what is necessary as the driver rather than philosophical positions or wanting to look good or trying to second guess, you know, how do I make a decision which is going to make me look good so that I can retain power. Just make decisions according to what needs to be done.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
just strip it away. You know, all this popularity contests and stuff all the time. It's just,
yeah,
it's a major inhibitor to, you know, to good, positive outcomes for people. You know, it was funny, you know, because on a sort of a related topic, you know, I was listening to this book that I'm, you know, on my morning talk,
yeah.
a morning drive rather, and he was talking about grace.
Okay, yes.
And I like the term he used. He says, you know, one form of grace is fierce grace.
Is what? Sorry.
Fierce grace,
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
which is literally, you know, like as you were just saying, you know, that sometimes people need to be hit right between the eyes for them
Yeah. Yeah.
to see it as it is, you know. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
mm, mm.
And
Yeah, so
also, you were mentioning it when we were discussing the fiat currencies, and the word trust. Okay,
mm,
that also comes up. But we're talking, you know, I sort of get I guess you do too. The feeling that we know there is like change in the air, and there
mm,
are things changing. There are really a lot of good
mm,
people inventing some really beneficial things for everybody,
mm,
and they don't want to necessarily, um, you know, make a fortune out of it. Um, so there are the people, there's more of a community, and there are more people taking to the streets, and there are more people sort of looking at alternatives. Then you get writings like these that I've just read to you
mm,
from, and somehow I think people are just awakening up more and more, and I really think that we live in in a good society, I really do. I think there's just so much to be grateful and blessed for. Okay, um, and yet, and I'm the guilty one. One tends to talk about the fear side, the negative side. The consumeristic side, the climate change side that's going to do all sorts of things, um, and
I wouldn't beat myself up about that, because I think, the context around it is, we can all sort of, sit here and say, oh, this shouldn't happen and that shouldn't happen. It's not me, it's all out there, which
yeah,
is
yeah,
nonsense. It's every single one of us, because, I would say that every single one of us will have that dialogue in the head at some point,
mm, mm,
usually on a daily basis, several times a day, I would argue, but anyway. And that's why it needs to come down to each and every one of us to take personal responsibility for this, that if we are committed to doing the right thing, it in many respects it behoves us to redefine what success means. Success
mm.
does not mean making millions and millions of dollars out of a business. Success does not mean every time there's an opportunity, like access to COVID tests, is to turning it into a money-making opportunity. Like, give me a break. Like, you know, yes, there may be an opportunity to make money out of this, but you know what? It's not what needs to be done. We need to deal with whatever the issue is. I mean, don't want to talk about COVID, but we need to deal with what needs to be done, and that's what
Yeah.
we've got to cut through to. Not, oh, where's the opportunity in this for me? Like it's.
But yeah, okay. But even if there is a bit of an opportunity for you, it's right. Let me get to a sustainable level with this idea or this business
Yeah,
idea, okay, and then
yeah,
let me share it, and then let's open out. Let's bring other
exactly. The
people in.
enoughness.
Yeah,
If you can
yeah,
apply your talent and skill
yes.
to enhance the rollout of whatever it is, or access to it, or whatever, then absolutely,
And
absolutely.
take what you need,
Mm,
okay,
yeah,
and then share the rest,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
and to broaden. That's all. Simple,
Mm,
okay.
mm,
And because of the world we live in, we need to be sustainable, okay,
mm.
but we don't need to be gluttonous or greedy.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Mm, mm,
Like,
yeah,
mm,
yeah. Um,
mm,
Tell me, do you if you take, like, I read this from um, somebody reading the planets for the stars, and
mm.
so um, what's your take on like Neptune and Jupiter in conjunction with each other and so on, and that causes a whole planetary effect towards things like compassion and empathy and forgiveness for that time. Um, do you think that's for real?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I mean, like we we don't live in isolation to our solar system, or the cosmos for that matter.
Mm.
And the way energy ebbs and flows and works, with planets and different configurations and alignments, or the moon cycles, or even the cycle which might last for hundreds of thousands of years in terms of our you know
Yeah.
orbit around the super sun or whatever. It definitely has an impact on us. Absolutely does. And I would also hasten to add to that is that, based on our level of awareness, like how in tune we are with our environment, also would have a direct bearing as to how sensitive to that we are as well. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
like some people, have experiences. They go through the spiritual awakening, that they seem to become hypersensitive to how other people feel and the environment around them. Some of them appear to take on, you know, these powers of being able to heal people and all of those sort of things. But the variable in all of that is how sensitive and receptive to it are you, you know. So I would argue that as part of our spiritual awakening, we become even more aware of and more in tune with, you know, the impact of things like that, you know.
Right.
I mean, even Sadhguru sort of says, and I've heard others say it as well, there's like, you know, there are certain times of the month which are just not good times to be making decisions, big decisions.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, so and that's sort of at a sort of a fairly localized micro level, you know, whether it's the impact of the moon or something like that, you know. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but the impact on the energy flows and so on goes far beyond, you know, the moon going around our planet. That's for sure.
Yeah. Talking about astrologers, I guess the question in my mind is, you know, that the knowledge is very, very, very ancient, and, uh, and I guess I don't know. I suppose people study to become an astrologer. I mean, I've over the years, and I listened to Leanne when on New Year's Eve talk, where she went to an astrologer, um, and she was like flabbergasted, absolutely flabbergasted, how this this female, you know, not only told her about herself and her recent past, but then also spoke about the future. And she said, you know, the past and the current was, you know, just 100% accurate. Okay. Um, and then the future, now you, because the past and the current is accurate, you then believe the future. Okay. And but this particular astrologer was able to say it's still your choice. Okay. The future, you know, this is what the future could be. Okay. It looks like it is. Okay. But you have to make decisions along the way. So it's interesting, because I think a lot of people look and say it's a lot of hogwash. Okay, the future doesn't come out. Okay, you can't. Otherwise, it's preordained. I'm just going to sit back and do nothing. Okay, and then it's going to happen. Okay, and you and I know that's not right, but this influence around the individual with all the planets and the influencing based on their level of consciousness, it still amazes me how it can be so accurate and so profound. Okay, and doing this class, to, you know, putting it up, reminded me that in my early 20s that I had mine done somewhere, and I just hope to God that I can find it somewhere. Okay, because would I like to read that now, you know, 50 years later. Okay, and see what it said. It says, okay, and the fact that this one that dealt with Leanne spoke about her being in her 9th year of a 9-year cycle, you know. So there's those cycles. They're all things that I used to be so interested in. I used to write about them and think, and somehow it's all become something of my distant past. Okay. Until I started doing this class. And so, you know, so yeah. Very interesting. So when you look at 2022, okay, let's pretend you are an astrologer or you are a seer, and you can prophesy, you can see in, and ignore what Sadhguru has said or anybody else. What do you see is going to happen? What is the most profound thing you think is going to happen in 2022? For yourself or for the planet? Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess some of the things that I sort of been looking at in terms of looking out is is the opportunity that new technology is going to provide. There's, I think there's a fantastic possibility and opportunity to do things beyond our wildest imagination with some of the new technologies like the blockchain and some of those things, which would enable us to fundamentally restructure the way we organise our societies. I think it's that profound in my view. Whether we do it or not as a collective remains to be seen. And I think that's the ebb and flow of that tide, isn't it? As to how many people dedicate focus and attention in moving towards those things, or dedicate focus and attention to the status quo, or the self. And I think that's the opportunity. I mean, my sense is that, as you said before, I think there is an awakening unfolding before our eyes. So I'm upbeat on it in that sense. And I guess the other thing that sort of guides my view about it too is it's a little bit like, as we've talked about in the past, like the full moon energy. We know that what that energy does is it magnifies whatever you're focusing on. So if you're feeling depressed, you feel bloody
sure,
rock bottom. If you're feeling joyful, you feel ecstatic. So in that sense, I think that the energy forces out there are intensifying. There's no doubt about that, because it's sort of manifesting in terms of movements within the planet and those things which people perceive to be natural disasters. So there's a fairly intense energy out there, and I think the opportunity for us is that if that intensification it impacts us, and it does, then the opportunity for us is to make sure that we're thinking and focusing on the magnification that we want to unfold.
Okay, that could be something in, let's say, if we're an artist or a carpenter or something, that we focus in on that time on maybe uplifting our art and getting it to another level during that. Am I right? Is that what you think?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then it sort of has always, been one of those questions which is sort of I've mused over for a long time. Is like, when I went to Italy, years ago now, and you just look at all of the magnificent sculptures and the architecture and stuff like that, and I often said to myself, like, so what went wrong? Like, why are we living in little boxes?
But you've answered yourself. You've answered yourself, because in these times of enlightenment, you have the choice. Okay, whatever you're thinking about manifests.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You even look at like the 1960s and the 1970s. The automotive industry, just a micro thing like that.
Yeah.
They made beautiful motor vehicles.
And the Beatles made beautiful sounds.
And what happened? What happened? But it's exactly as you've answered.
Yeah.
So, as lots of people have been saying, like Alatra and others, in effect, the energy will flow where your attention goes, so.
Yeah.
So, and that comes back to each and every one of us, that each and every one of us, you can't sort of say, oh, the government or the leader or whoever, each and every one of us need to focus that energy, so that's completely within our control and power.
Okay, but I want to come back to what you said, Sadhguru said, there are times for not making decisions. Okay. Now, you and I too, but you tend to talk about it more than I do. And that is, like full moon. So you get the waxing and the waning. So let's assume that the waxing of the moon is when things are building up, and that's a good time. Does that mean when with the waning of the moon, that you need to sort of step back and allow that half of the month to sort of just be mundane type of stuff and not focus on creativity? Oh, you seem to have frozen. Okay. Okay. What happened there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? What happened? We've gone frozen again. Give me a call when you're back.